At my granddaughter's birthday, my daughter took the microphone and said, "This is my real family. The rest is part of the past." I left without saying a word. The next day, I canceled the monthly support check. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I carefully placed the silver-wrapped gift box on the table with the other presents. It had taken me weeks to find the perfect charm bracelet for Audrey's 10th birthday. Each charm represented a special moment we'd shared. A tiny book for our reading sessions, a paintbrush for our art afternoons, a little cake for the first time she helped me bake. I'd spent far more than I should have, but what else was I supposed to do with my money if not spoil my only grandchild? The backyard of my daughter's suburban home was transformed with pastel balloons and fairy lights. Children ran around screaming with joy while parents chatted in small groups. I stood alone, clutching my purse. No one approached me. Olivia's friends never did. "Mom, you made it." Olivia appeared beside me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. At 42, she looked more like her father every day. Same sharp features, same calculating gaze. "I wouldn't miss Audrey's birthday," I replied, leaning in for a hug she didn't return. "Mason set up a place for you over there." She pointed to a table at the far edge of the yard, separate from the other guests. Mason, her husband of 3 years, gave me a quick wave from where he stood manning the grill, his smile as artificial as the turf beneath our feet. "Of course," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "Anything for Audrey." I made my way to the isolated table, passing groups of laughing parents who barely glanced my way. This wasn't new. Since Olivia had married Mason, I'd been gradually pushed to the periphery of their lives. The weekly dinners became monthly, then whenever we can fit it in. The daily phone calls dwindled to perfunctory check-ins. Still, I kept showing up. Kept sending the monthly checks that helped them afford this beautiful house and Audrey's private school. Kept pretending it didn't hurt when Olivia introduced me to her friends as Joan, instead of my mother. After the cake was served and Audrey had opened her mountain of presents, exclaiming with genuine delight over the bracelet at least, Mason clinked his glass. The yard fell silent. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced, his arm around Olivia's waist. "To our amazing daughter on her special day." "Our daughter, not my stepdaughter." I bit my lip. "And to family," he continued. "Those who stand by us through everything." He handed the microphone to Olivia, who beamed at the crowd. My heart lifted slightly. Maybe she would acknowledge me, sitting alone at my distant table. "Thank you all for coming today," she said. "Looking around, I see the people who matter most." Her eyes swept the yard, skipping over my corner entirely. "This is my real family. The rest is in the past." The rest? Me. I was the rest. The weight of those words crushed the air from my lungs. Guests raised their glasses, oblivious to the knife that had just been plunged into my heart. Mason caught my eye across the yard and smirked slightly before turning away. I sat frozen, the plastic fork in my hand suddenly heavy as lead. 10 years of raising Olivia alone after her father left us. Decades of working 2 jobs to put her through college. The down payment for this very house, given freely when she and Robert, Audrey's father, were struggling newlyweds. All of it erased with a single sentence delivered with a smile. I waited until the attention had shifted to the piñata before gathering my purse. No one noticed as I slipped through the side gate. No one called after me as I walked to my car, tears blurring my vision. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my checkbook. The monthly check to Olivia, $2000, same as always, was already written, dated for tomorrow. I'd never missed a month, not even when my own roof needed repairs and I had to take out a loan. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone to check my account balance. Social Security and my modest pension from 35 years of teaching barely covered my own expenses. The extra I sent them each month came from my dwindling savings. For what? To be declared the past at my own granddaughter's birthday party? With sudden clarity, I ripped the check in half, then quarters, watching the pieces flutter onto the table like confetti. Tomorrow, I would call the bank and cancel the automatic transfer I'd set up as a backup. At 65, I was finally cutting the financial cord. The emotional one had already been severed. Not by me, but by the daughter I had given everything to. I picked up the torn pieces of the check, feeling a strange sense of liberation beneath the hurt. If I was to be the rest in their lives, then perhaps it was time they learned to live without the rest of what I provided too. The morning after Audrey's birthday party, I awoke with swollen eyes and a strange hollowness in my chest. For the first time in decades, I didn't immediately check my phone for messages from Olivia. Instead, I called my bank and canceled the automatic transfer scheduled for the following week. "Are you sure, Mrs. Wheeler?" The bank representative sounded concerned. "This payment has been going out monthly for over 5 years. "I'm sure," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "It's time for a change." As I made my morning tea, memories flooded back. Not the fresh wound of yesterday's humiliation, but older ones, from when it was just Olivia and me against the world. I was only 25 when Frank left. Olivia had just turned 3, still sleeping with her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. I discovered the note on a Tuesday morning. "This isn't the life I wanted. Don't try to find me." He'd emptied our joint account, all $342 of it, leaving nothing but a mortgage we could no longer afford and a toddler who kept asking when Daddy was coming home. I sold my wedding ring the next day. It covered 1 month's mortgage payment. Then I picked up night shifts at the hospital cafeteria in addition to my daytime teaching job. My mother watched Olivia on the nights I worked, until her arthritis got too bad. After that, I paid a neighbor, eating into our already tight budget. Sleep became a luxury. Many nights I'd grade papers while serving mashed potatoes to doctors and nurses, then catch a few hours rest before heading to my classroom. On weekends I cleaned houses for extra cash. Despite everything, I made sure Olivia never felt our struggles. Her clothes came from second-hand shops, but I'd sew on pretty buttons or colorful patches to make them special. Christmas always included at least one new toy, even if it meant I went without new shoes for another season. When Olivia was accepted to college, the first in our family, I remortgaged the house to cover what her scholarships didn't. I still remember her graduation day, how proud I felt watching her accept her diploma, knowing every overtime shift and missed social event had been worth it. She met Robert during her final year of college. He was kind, ambitious, with dreams of starting his own landscaping business. When they married 2 years later, I helped with the modest wedding. And when they struggled to make ends meet in those early years, I was there with grocery gift cards and just because checks that I knew would cover their electricity bill. The birth of Audrey was the brightest spot in my life. I was there in the delivery room, holding Olivia's hand through every contraction. I took a month off work to help with the newborn, sleeping on their lumpy sofa, cooking meals, doing midnight feedings so the exhausted new parents could rest. For 7 years we were a tight unit, Olivia, Robert, Audrey, and me. Sunday dinners at my house became a sacred tradition. I watched my granddaughter grow from a colicky infant to a curious toddler to a bright-eyed schoolgirl. I helped with her homework while Olivia and Robert worked late. I attended every school play, soccer game, and parent-teacher conference when they couldn't make it. Then came the divorce. Robert's business had finally taken off, and suddenly he wanted freedom to explore life. Olivia was devastated. I increased my financial support, helping her keep the house so Audrey wouldn't have to change schools. Mason entered the picture 8 months later. Charming, successful, with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. He swept Olivia off her feet with expensive gifts and romantic getaways. I was happy she'd found someone after the pain of her divorce, even if something about him made me uneasy. The wedding was lavish, nothing like her first simple ceremony. I contributed a significant portion of my retirement savings toward it, wanting her to have the special day she deserved. That was the first time I noticed the shift. Mason took control of the seating arrangements, placing me at a back table with distant relatives instead of with the immediate family. After they married, the Sunday dinners at my house stopped. Mason likes to grill on weekends, Olivia explained. I was invited to their house instead, where I was increasingly treated as a guest rather than family. Mason would subtly correct my table manners or give Olivia looks when I mentioned our old life together. Then came the loans that were never repaid. The calls for emergency childcare that were canceled last minute. The times my advice was solicited then ignored. Still I kept showing up. Kept sending the monthly checks. Kept loving them unconditionally. Until yesterday, when Olivia made it clear that my role in their lives had been reduced to that of a financial resource. one they needed but didn't particularly want around. The tea kettle whistled, jolting me back to the present. My tea had gone cold, just like the relationship with my daughter. But as I poured a fresh cup, I realized something. Despite everything, I didn't regret a single sacrifice I'd made. I'd given Olivia the stable, loving childhood her father had denied her. What she chose to do with that foundation was beyond my control. For the first time in decades, I decided to spend the day thinking about what I wanted. Just me. Not as Olivia's mother or Audrey's grandmother, but as Joan Wheeler, a woman with perhaps more life behind her than ahead, but still with dreams of her own. 3 days after I canceled the monthly check, my phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering, something I'd never done before. "Hello, Olivia," I said, my voice calm despite my pounding heart. "Mom." Her tone was sharp, dispensing with pleasantries. "There's a problem with the bank. Your monthly transfer didn't come through." "No, how are you?" No mention of how I'd left the party early. Just straight to the money. "It's not a bank error," I replied. "I canceled the transfer." Silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. Then she laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Very funny, Mom. Seriously, I need to pay Audrey's piano teacher tomorrow." "I'm not joking, Olivia. I've stopped the payments." Her breath caught audibly. "You can't do that. We're counting on that money." The same way I counted on being treated like family at my granddaughter's birthday party? The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Oh my God." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Is this about Mason's toast? You're being ridiculous." "It wasn't Mason's toast. It was yours." My hands trembled, but my voice remained steady. "You said I was the rest that belongs in the past." "I didn't mean you specifically." "Who else would I think you meant, Olivia?" I was sitting alone at a table in the corner, while everyone who matters was gathered around you. She sighed heavily. "Mom, you're overreacting. It was just a figure of speech." "Maybe so," I conceded. "But it made some things very clear to me." "Like what?" "That you'd punish your granddaughter by cutting us off financially." The guilt trip, her favorite tactic. It had worked countless times before. "Audrey has 2 parents with good jobs," I pointed out. "And I'm not responsible for her piano lessons. You and Mason are." "I can't believe how selfish you're being," she snapped. "After everything we've done for you." My mouth fell open. "Everything you've done for me?" "Yes. Including you and holidays, sending Audrey to visit, letting you be part of our lives." Letting me. As if my presence in their lives was a favor they bestowed, not a relationship built on love and shared history. "I see," I said quietly. "Well, thank you for that generosity. But I think it's time I step back and let you manage without my interference." "Fine," she practically shouted. "If that's how you want it, fine. But don't come crying to me when you're lonely and need help." The line went dead. I sat staring at the phone, a strange numbness spreading through me. Had our relationship always been this transactional? Had I simply refused to see it? The following weeks brought more calls, first angry, then manipulative. Mason left voicemails about family obligations and how I was hurting Audrey. Olivia's tactics shifted from rage to guilt, reminding me of how little time I likely had left, and wouldn't I want to spend it with family? I let most calls go to voicemail. When I did answer, I kept conversations brief and factual. No, I wasn't reconsidering the financial support. Yes, I was still available to see Audrey if they'd allow it. No, I wasn't doing this out of spite. Then the rumors started. My neighbor Helen stopped by one afternoon, concern etched on her kind face. "Joan, is everything all right with you?" she asked, accepting the tea I offered. "I'm fine." "Why do you ask?" She hesitated. "Well, I ran into Olivia at the supermarket yesterday. She mentioned you've been confused lately, making irrational decisions. She's worried about early dementia." The teacup rattled in my hand. "Did she really say that?" Helen nodded uncomfortably. "She said Mason's cousin is a geriatric specialist, and they're considering having you evaluated." Cold anger washed over me. So this was their strategy: paint me as mentally incompetent rather than admit they'd pushed me away for financial reasons. "I appreciate your concern, Helen," I said, setting down my cup. "But I'm perfectly sound of mind." My doctor gave me a clean bill of health just last month. After Helen left, I called my doctor and requested a cognitive assessment, which I passed with flying colors. I also visited my bank and updated my financial documents, ensuring no one could claim authority over my assets without extensive legal proceedings. Just in case. 2 days later, I ran into Faye Williams at the community garden. Faye was on the board of the local senior center where I volunteered teaching art classes. "Joan, I was surprised to hear about Mason's financial troubles," she said as we pruned tomato plants side by side. I frowned. Mason's financial troubles? Olivia mentioned he's been struggling since his parents cut him off. Said that's why they needed your help so desperately. She looked up from the plant. "I thought you knew." I shook my head slowly. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The fancy car Mason drove, the lavish vacations, the extensive home renovations, none of it matched the income from his supposedly successful real estate business. They hadn't just been using my money for Audrey's needs. They'd been using it to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford on their own. That evening, instead of dwelling on the betrayal, I immersed myself in my garden. As I dug my hands into the rich soil, planting fall bulbs that wouldn't bloom until long after winter had passed, I made a decision. I would step away completely. No more calls, no more attempts at reconciliation. I would tend to my own life now, nurturing the roots I'd neglected while pouring all my energy into Olivia's family. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally recognizing my own worth. Winter melted into spring, and with it came a new rhythm to my days. I volunteered more hours at the community garden, joined a book club at the library, and even signed up for a watercolor class I'd been eyeing for years but never had time for. The constant weight of worry about Olivia and her family lifted, leaving space for simple joys I'd forgotten existed. Occasionally, the absence ached like an old injury, especially during holidays or when I'd see grandmothers with their grandchildren at the park. But I'd made my peace with the situation. If my only value to them had been financial, then perhaps it was better this way. I hadn't heard from Olivia in over 2 months. The angry calls had eventually stopped, replaced by silence that spoke volumes. I assumed they'd found other ways to maintain their lifestyle without my contribution. Then on a warm Saturday in May, the doorbell rang. I wiped my paint-stained hands on my apron and opened the door to find Audrey standing on my porch, her bike leaning against the railing. "Grandma," she said, her voice small but determined. At 13, she'd grown taller since I'd last seen her, her features maturing into a lovely blend of Olivia and Robert. "Audrey." I glanced past her, expecting to see one of her parents nearby. The street was empty. "Does your mother know you're here?" She shook her head, clutching a worn notebook to her chest. "I found something. I had to show you." I ushered her inside, noticing the stubborn set of her jaw. So like Olivia at that age, before life had taught her to calculate every emotion. "Mom and Mason are at a fundraiser," she explained, settling on my couch. "They think I'm at Hannah's house studying." "Audrey, I don't want to cause problems." "They caused the problems, not you." Her directness startled me. "I found this in our attic last week. I was looking for old photos for a school project." She handed me the notebook. It was a journal, the cover faded and corners worn soft with handling. I recognized it immediately. I'd given it to Olivia for her 15th birthday, a place to record her thoughts during those turbulent teenage years. "Have you read this?" I asked, hesitant to invade my daughter's privacy, even decades later. Audrey nodded. "Just parts. The parts about you." With trembling fingers, I opened to a page marked with a yellow sticky note. Olivia's youthful handwriting flowed across the page. "Mom worked double shifts again this week. I pretended to be asleep when she came home at midnight, but I watched her counting bills at the kitchen table. She looked so tired. I know she's doing it all for me. Sometimes I feel guilty for asking for the new jeans everyone's wearing, but she always finds a way to make it happen. I don't know how she does it. When I grow up, I want to take care of her the way she takes care of me." My vision blurred with tears. I turned to another marked page. "Got accepted to state today." Mom cried when I showed her the letter. Then she pulled out a savings account book I never knew existed. "She's been putting away $25 a month since I was a baby. For your education," she said. "That's over $4,000. She must have sacrificed so much to save that money. I'm going to make her proud, I swear. The Olivia who wrote these words, the girl who had seen and appreciated my sacrifices, seemed worlds away from the woman who had dismissed me as the past at her daughter's birthday party. There's more, Audrey said softly, turning to another marked page near the end. Mom remortgaged the house to help with tuition. I overheard her talking to the bank. She thinks I don't know, but I do. She keeps saying not to worry, that everything's fine, but I saw the past due notices. I'm going to get a part-time job this semester. It won't cover much, but it's something. Someday when I'm successful, I'll pay her back for everything. I'll buy her a house where she never has to worry about bills again. A sob escaped my throat. Those plans, those good intentions, where had they gone? Why doesn't Mom talk about any of this? Audrey asked, her young face serious. She acts like you never did anything for her. Mason says you were always focused on your career and never had time for Mom. I wiped my eyes, choosing my words carefully. People remember things differently sometimes, and relationships change over time. But these are her own words, Audrey insisted, tapping the journal. She knew what you did for her. She was grateful. She was young, I said gently. When we're young, we see things clearly. Then life gets complicated. New relationships, new priorities. Mason, Audrey said flatly. I raised an eyebrow. You don't like Mason? She shrugged, suddenly looking every bit the teenager she was. He's okay, I guess. Different when Mom's not around. He's always talking about money, who has it, who doesn't, what things cost. And he made Mom sell all the old furniture you gave her. Said it didn't fit their aesthetic. The last word was delivered with air quotes and an eye roll that made me hide a smile despite the circumstances. Why did you stop coming over, Grandma? And why did you stop helping with money? Is it because of what Mom said at my birthday party? The direct question caught me off guard. I'd never intended to put Audrey in the middle of this situation. It's complicated, sweetheart. I'm not a little kid anymore, she said with quiet dignity. I know when adults are hiding things from me. I studied her face, so young, yet with an awareness beyond her years. She deserved some version of the truth, without vilifying her mother. Yes, I admitted. What your mother said hurt me deeply. But it wasn't just that moment. It was realizing that our relationship had become unbalanced. I was giving much more than I was receiving in many ways. The money, she nodded. Not just money. Respect. Consideration. Love. I took her hand. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is step back from relationships that aren't serving us well. But I miss you, she said simply, and my heart cracked open. I've missed you too, sweetheart. Every single day. We sat in silence for a moment, the old journal between us. A paper bridge connecting past and present. Can I come see you sometimes? She asked finally. Even if Mom doesn't know? I shook my head. I won't go behind your mother's back. But I can talk to her, try to establish some visiting time. Audrey nodded, though doubt clouded her eyes. I should go before they get home. At the door she turned and hugged me fiercely. You're not the past, Grandma. Not to me. I watched her pedal away, my heart lighter than it had been in months. The journal she'd left behind sat on my coffee table. A reminder that once, long ago, Olivia had seen me clearly. And now perhaps her daughter did too. After Audrey's visit, I spent several days contemplating how to approach Olivia about supervised visits with my granddaughter. I wanted to do this right, to be firm about my boundaries while still opening a door for Audrey. But before I could make the call, life intervened in an unexpected way. The knock on my door came early on a Tuesday morning. I opened it to find Robert, Olivia's ex-husband and Audrey's father, standing on my porch. I hadn't seen him since before the divorce 3 years ago. Joan, he said, looking uncomfortable. Sorry to drop by unannounced. Do you have a minute? I invited him in, curious and slightly wary. Robert had always been kind to me, but our relationship had naturally faded after the divorce. He declined coffee, perching on the edge of my sofa like he was prepared to make a quick exit. I ran into Audrey yesterday during our regular visit, he began. She mentioned seeing you. She did, I confirmed. I hope that's not a problem. He shook his head. No, not at all. Actually, I've been meaning to reach out to you for a while now. Audrey's been concerned about the situation with Olivia and Mason. Something in his tone made me sit up straighter. What situation? Robert sighed, running a hand through his hair, now flecked with gray at the temples. Look, I try to stay out of Olivia's business. Co-parenting is hard enough without adding complications. But this affects Audrey, and now that she's told me you've been cut out too. Robert, what's going on? Mason is in trouble. Financial trouble. He leaned forward, lowering his voice as if someone might overhear. He lost his real estate license 6 months ago. Ethical violations. He's been pretending to work, leaving the house every day in his suit, but he hasn't made a commission in half a year. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Does Olivia know? I don't think so. Not the full extent, anyway. Audrey says they've been fighting about money. Olivia started working overtime at the clinic, and suddenly they're economizing. He made air quotes around the word. No more housekeeping service. Audrey's horse riding lessons canceled. But Mason still drives that BMW, still belongs to the country club. And you're telling me this because? Robert met my eyes directly. Because I think they've been living off your money for a lot longer than anyone realized. And when you cut them off, it exposed the cracks in their façade. The pieces began to fit together. Mason's hostility toward me, Olivia's increasing distance, the desperate reaction when I stopped the monthly payments. It hadn't just been about Audrey's expenses. It had been about maintaining their entire lifestyle. There's more, Robert continued reluctantly. Audrey overheard a phone call. Mason was talking to someone about a home equity loan, using the house as collateral. The house I helped them buy, I murmured. Yes, the house where my daughter lives half the time. His jaw tightened. I'm worried he's dragging Olivia into a financial mess that will affect Audrey. I've tried talking to Olivia, but she won't listen. She thinks I'm just jealous of Mason. I understood Robert's frustration. Olivia had always been stubborn, unwilling to admit mistakes. Once she committed to a path or a person, she'd defend it fiercely, even when evidence mounted against her choice. Why are you really here, Robert? I asked gently. He exhaled slowly. I'm filing for primary custody of Audrey. The hearing is next month. It would help if you testify about the changes you've observed in Olivia's home situation. The request stunned me. Testify against my own daughter? Potentially help take Audrey away from her? I can't do that, I said quietly. Whatever's happened between Olivia and me, she's still Audrey's mother. Robert nodded, unsurprised. I understand. I had to ask. He stood to leave, then hesitated. Just keep your eyes open. Audrey might need a safe place to land if things get worse. After he left, I sat alone in my silent house, mind racing. What if he was right? What if Mason was leading Olivia toward financial ruin? My instinct to protect my daughter surged forward, despite everything. Before I could overthink it, I picked up the phone and called Olivia's cell. It went straight to voicemail. I tried her work number. Westside Medical, how may I direct your call? Said a receptionist. Olivia Wheeler, please. It's her mother. A pause. I'm sorry, Mrs. Wheeler is out today. Would you like her voicemail? Out today? But Robert had said she was working overtime. No, thank you, I said and hung up. A sense of foreboding propelled me to my car. I drove the familiar route to Olivia's house, telling myself I would just drive by. Just check if everything was all right. But as I rounded the corner onto her street, I saw several cars parked in her driveway, including a police cruiser. Heart pounding, I pulled over. Should I approach? Was this a family emergency? I was no longer welcome in that house, but if Audrey needed me. Before I could decide, the front door opened. 2 uniformed officers emerged, followed by Mason in handcuffs. Behind them came Olivia, face pale and streaked with tears, clutching Audrey's shoulders. I slumped down in my seat, not wanting to be seen, as Mason was placed in the police car. Once it drove away, I watched Olivia and Audrey retreat inside, closing the door on whatever crisis had just unfolded. My phone rang in my purse. Robert's name flashed on the screen. Did you hear? He asked without preamble. I just saw Mason being arrested. What happened? Fraud, Robert said grimly. He's been running some kind of investment scheme through his old real estate contacts, taking money for properties that didn't exist. I closed my eyes. And Olivia? They don't think she knew. Not yet anyway. But they've frozen all their accounts while they investigate. She called me in a panic. I'm on my way to pick up Audrey now. After hanging up, I sat in my car watching my daughter's house. The beautiful home with its manicured lawn and gleaming windows now seemed like a stage set, a façade hiding a collapsing reality. Should I go to her? Would she even want my help now? I remembered the look on her face as she stood in the doorway watching her husband being taken away. Stunned, devastated, lost. I remembered feeling exactly the same way the day Frank left. Before I could change my mind, I started my car and drove slowly up the driveway of the house I had helped buy, preparing to face whatever remained of the life my daughter had built on shifting sand. Olivia didn't answer when I knocked. I tried again, then heard the deadbolt slide back. The door opened just enough to reveal her face, drawn, exhausted, eyes swollen from crying. "Mom!" Her voice cracked. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who'd crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, seeking comfort from the monsters that frightened her. "I saw what happened," I said simply. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped back, opening the door wider. The immaculate house I remembered was in disarray. Papers scattered across the coffee table, half-empty mugs on every surface, a blanket crumpled on the couch where someone had been sleeping. "Audrey's with Robert," she said, answering my unspoken question. "He came to get her right after." She trailed off, unable to finish. I nodded. "That's good. She shouldn't have to deal with this right now." Olivia moved mechanically to the kitchen, filling the kettle as if operating on autopilot. I followed, taking in the stack of unwashed dishes, the unpaid bills magnetized to the refrigerator. Evidence of a life unraveling long before today's crisis point. "They say he stole from people," she said, her back to me. "People we know. Our friends." Her shoulders began to shake. How could I not have known? I wanted to go to her, to hold her as I had when she was small. But too much stood between us now. Instead, I moved to the sink and began washing dishes. Practical help first. Words could come later. "The police took our computers," she continued, setting 2 mugs on the counter. "They asked so many questions. About when I last saw our bank statements. About large transfers to accounts I've never heard of." Her voice rose. "They think I might have been involved." "Were you?" I asked quietly, placing a clean plate in the drying rack. "No." Her outrage seemed genuine. "I trusted him with everything. The finances, the investments, all of it. I was so busy at work, and he seemed to know what he was doing." The kettle whistled. She poured water over tea bags with shaking hands. "They've frozen all our accounts," she whispered. "I have $47 in my wallet. That's it. Everything else is just gone." We sat at the kitchen table, steam rising from our mugs in the heavy silence. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows of the home that might soon be lost. "I don't know what to do," Olivia admitted, staring into her tea as if it might contain answers. "I don't even know where to start." I sipped my tea, considering my words carefully. "You start exactly where I did when your father left. One foot in front of the other. One problem at a time." Her eyes flickered up to meet mine. "You never talk about that. You never asked." Another silence, heavier this time with the weight of unspoken history. "I found a journal," I said finally. "Your old journal. Audrey brought it to me." Olivia's face flushed. "She had no right. She's trying to understand what happened between us." I interrupted gently. "We all are." She looked away, her defenses rising visibly. I changed tactics. "You'll need a lawyer," I said, my tone practical. "A good one, not connected to Mason. I can help you find someone." "I can't afford a lawyer," she said bitterly. "I can." Her head snapped up. "After everything? After how I treated you?" I set down my mug. "Let me be very clear, Olivia. I'm not offering to rescue you financially. I won't pay off Mason's debts or save this house. But I will help you get legal representation to protect yourself and your future. Because despite everything, you're my daughter." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why would you help me at all? I don't deserve it." "This isn't about what you deserve," I said. It's about what you need. And right now you need support. Just like I needed it when your father left. But you didn't have anyone, she whispered. No, I agreed. I didn't. And that's why I know exactly how terrifying this moment is for you. She broke then, sobs shaking her body as the walls she built came crashing down. I moved to her side, holding her as she cried, for her failed marriage, for her uncertain future, perhaps even for the years of distance between us. When the storm of emotion passed, we talked practicalities. I would help her find a lawyer. She would look for a more affordable apartment. Robert had agreed to take Audrey full-time until things stabilized, with Olivia having weekend visits. You could stay with me until you find a place, I offered, surprising myself. She looked up, equally surprised. You'd let me do that? After I called you the past? That hurt, I admitted. More than you know. But holding on to that hurt won't help either of us move forward. As afternoon faded into evening, we began the painful process of sorting through her belongings, separating necessities from luxuries, creating piles to sell or donate. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It was something more tentative, a careful rebuilding on more honest ground. 3 months later, Olivia was settled in a modest 2-bedroom apartment near my house. The fraud investigation had cleared her of involvement, though the financial aftermath would follow her for years. She'd increased her hours at the clinic and was slowly establishing her independence. Every Wednesday evening, she and Audrey came for dinner at my house. We were relearning each other, finding our way back to the connection that had sustained us before money complicated everything. Audrey thrived in the new arrangement, shuttling between Robert's stable home and Olivia's apartment, stopping by my house whenever she wanted. The pretense was gone, replaced by something more genuine if imperfect. On a warm evening in late summer, as we sat on my back porch watching fireflies rise from the garden, Olivia turned to me. I've been meaning to ask, she said hesitantly. The journal, the one Audrey found. What happened to it? I smiled. I have it. I thought you might want it back someday. She nodded, looking out at the gathering dusk. I'd forgotten what I wrote in it. About you. About everything you did. People forget, I said simply. Memories shift to fit the stories we tell ourselves. I told myself a story where I deserved the good things in my life, she admitted. Where I earned them through my own efforts. It was easier than acknowledging how much I owed you. The words settled between us. An acknowledgement of truth that had been a long time coming. I don't need your gratitude, Olivia. I never did. I reached for her hand. I just needed to be seen. To be valued for more than what I could provide. She squeezed my fingers. I see you now, Mom. I really do. 2 weeks later, on my 66th birthday, I arrived home from my watercolor class to find Olivia and Audrey in my kitchen, putting the finishing touches on a homemade cake. The small table was set with my good dishes, a bouquet of garden flowers in the center. After dinner, Olivia handed me a small package. Inside was a silver photo frame containing a picture of the three of us. Grandmother, mother, daughter, arms linked, faces turned toward each other rather than the camera. A moment of genuine connection captured in silver and glass. Happy birthday, Mom, she said, her voice soft but steady. From your family. Your real family. The words echoed those she'd spoken at Audrey's party nearly a year ago. But this time, instead of exclusion, they offered belonging. Instead of rejection, acceptance. I placed the frame on my mantle, alongside the photographs that told the story of our lives, the past, present, and whatever future we would build together, one truthful day at a time.